Hi there, Stitchers. How's it going? It's Jessie from Jessie Marie Does Stuff. I know it's been a long time since you guys have seen my face. I haven't recorded a video face-to-face in a really long time. And then some of you didn't get a chance to see my plans for the Maliciously Hopeless sales. Don't worry about it. We'll start here. Don't worry about not being able to see those plans. I have since completely revised my plans for the stitch-alongs that are being hosted on the Cross Stitch It's Fun Facebook group. Don't worry about what my plans were for that, just because it's been changed pretty much completely. So I will be recording a video later this week to sort of bring you up to speed on what my plans are for that. So today, the focus, it being February the 1st, I thought that it was time to do my January Works in Progress update, and then to show you my WIP plan calendar thingamajigger that I put together for February. So I've done a lot of stitching in January, and I'm not entirely sure how I accomplished as much as I did. I mean, truly, I'm convinced that there were tiny elves that came into my home and stitched for me overnight, and then I woke up and it was much more progress than I had ever anticipated. Part of it may have been due to Christmas break, or winter break, I guess. I didn't start back to school until the 21st of January, so I had a good 3 weeks to get all of the stitching done that I wanted to. I probably owe part of that to the Hangouts, as we can all, many of us can testify that Hangouts equal production as far as stitching is concerned. So anyway, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to record today, and then get my stitchy bug on. So the order in which I'm going to show you these projects is the order in which I stitch them, kind of. And I'll just put up my calendar here so you can see what my original plan for January was, and then you will quickly see that it kind of dissipated. I rarely followed the plan. So the first project that I stitched on, it began as a stitch-along for Here on Floss 2, the Mirabilia stitch-along. And as you may recall, I chose to do Persephone from Mirabilia. And the fabric that I chose, I don't know why, but I keep calling it the wrong thing. It is Tempest. And this is hand-dyed fabrics from Stephanie. And so this is my fabric. It's kind of purpley and brown and tan and whatnot, and you probably are all freaking out going, Jess, where's the stitching? It's on the other side. I'm just being sneaky. So this is what I've accomplished in the month of January as with regards to my Mirabilia. And I started in the middle, and then I'm working my way down, and I will get down to the bottom here before I start working my way back up. And this is the biggest sea of white I have ever worked on in my life. I'm so thankful that I'm doing this on a colored fabric, because white on white drives me crazy. And then I have started stitching skin. There we go. So there's a part of her arm, and then her hand comes down in that space there. And I love this project. Oh my goodness, do I love it. I love the colors. I love the detail. I love the flowers. I love all of the beading that I'm going to do later. You can see a bunch of space here in the white, a bunch of spaces, and all of that's going to be beads. I just love it. And I love the color play that Mirabilia uses, so it really looks like folds in her skirt, especially in here. I'm just really loving it. And I'm looking forward to working on this some more in February. So, the Crafty Curator and I have sort of come to this agreement, because I was contemplating whether I was going to stitch Persephone or At the Met, and she was contemplating the same thing. Well, we both chose the opposite project. And so we sort of came to this agreement that if we get our respective projects done by the end of the year, then we get to kit up and start the other. So she's working on At the Met. If she finishes At the Met this year, she gets to kit up and start Persephone, and vice versa for myself. In order for me to complete Persephone, because she is so large, she's a big girl, you know, she's gonna span a large majority of this fabric here. I want to have the stitching done by August. That's my plan. I want to be done cross-stitching by August so that I can start the beading process then. There are no metallics in Persephone. There is a great big wallpaper background using Karen water lilies. That is going to take me some time. So I just want to get the cross-stitch done to give myself some time to do the 2,000 beads that are needed for this project. And so we'll see about that. Plus, August sort of has a meaning to the Persephone myth because August is the time of the harvest, and or it's related to the time of the harvest, who the goddess of the harvest was Demeter, who was Persephone's mama. And so I just kind of thought the timing was kind of cool. Don't ask, I'm easily amused by things like that. So I have now 7 months to get the stitching done here. And that's quite a daunting task, but I think I can do it. I think. So that's Persephone. Then on, find a good place to set these down. On January the 2nd, I started the Heaven and Earth Design bulletin board stitch along, and I'm stitching it on 25 count Lugana, which is my favorite for Heaven and Earth designs. And I did some of the gridding on the first, but I started stitching on the second. And this is my progress so far. So I have 3 columns mostly done. You can see the white spaces there. That was a color that I didn't have, that I went to purchase 3 or 4 times and kept grabbing the wrong one for some reason. But this is my Hearth of Gold. And there is so much confetti in this piece. Oh my goodness, you would not believe. For it being so small, it's going to be a complex stitch. It's going to take me a little while. Unfortunately, I don't find it as enjoyable as I normally do my Heaven and Earth designs. And that's a real shame because it's such a quick, it's going to be so fast because, I mean, this first page that they gave us is a full page, and then the rest are tiny partials, very small partials. So I'm just going to keep working on it, and I'm going to work at it on my own pace, and it'll get done. It'll get done this year. I'm going to have, this is probably going to be my first Heaven and Earth design finish. You can start to see on the far corner here, there's an ear, and then like the beginnings of a chest, and then the leg of the first golden retriever. And so that's my Hearth of Gold. And this piece I'm going to work on in February, but I don't know how much. I would like to get to the half-page mark before February the 27th, because on the 27th, the page 2 is released. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, then on January, oh, sorry, stuff fell here. On January the 16th was the very first of the Cross Stitches Fun Hopeless Sals, or Maliciously Hopeless Sals, or Stitch-alongs, or whatever you want to call it. And I was stitching the Girls Just Want to Have Fun. And this was my very first ever commission piece. A friend of mine at work asked me to stitch it for her, and so I I happily agreed. Loved stitching things for people, and so I gave it a start. And I started this on 22 count Aida, and that's as far as I got before I said I hate this fabric. I didn't like it. It's so stiff. I don't like the stitches. I don't know if you're going to be able to see, but they're not even. They don't sit pretty. One strand is not, it's not good coverage, but 2 strands, it's too bulky. I don't like this fabric. If you can stitch on 22 count, more power to you. But I am not one of those people. I did not find this enjoyable at all. I didn't want to work in this at all. And, it's a commission piece, so I had to work on it. So I started over. And I started over on 25 count Bone Lugana, which was originally the fabric that I had purchased for my Heaven and Earth Design bulletin board cell. But it's more linen-like than Lugana. There's definitely some weft and weave-ish. I mean, it's pretty much an even weave, but there's some weft and there's some slubs and whatnot. And so that's what the fabric looks like. And then this is what I have completed. I have a finish! My first finish of 2015. I'm so excited. So, the piece speaks for itself. The title of it is Girls Just Want to Have Fundamental Human Rights. And the designer here is Plastic Little Covers. It's a designer on Etsy. And without saying too much, I don't know that I will be doing another Plastic Little Covers pattern. I have OCD when it comes to stitching, and on designs like this, where, I'm trying to think of the word here, where both sides are the same. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So, there's uneven things. Some of the letters, some of the same letters, so like the two A's here were charted to be different. The two N's were charted to be different. The middle of each band, you could say, doesn't line up. So the middle of Girls doesn't line up with the middle of Just Wanna. And that drives me nuts. It just, I don't enjoy that. So I had to change some things about this pattern to try to get it to match up so that I was comfortable with it. And so, you know, I'm sure that the design looks fantastic the way it was charted, you know. Some differences between the letters would probably look great, but it wasn't comfortable for me. So, you know, that's probably a user thing more than pattern design. But anyway, so this is finished. I stitched it 2 over 2 on 25 count Lugana, so it basically works out to 12.5 count, which I really enjoyed. I like the coverage, and it was a really quick one. I mean, you know, it's blocks of color and really simple. The day that I restarted it, I completed the top 3 bands. I mean, it was really, really fast. I think I finished this in like 3 days total. So that's pretty cool. So that's all done. My first finish needs a wash, needs an iron, and then I'm going to embark on framing. Very excited. The recipient is she's on vacation for, I think a week or so. So I have some time to get this done before I give it to her. So that's that. Then, the next piece that I worked on was my Passion Ricamo Under the Moonlight Stitch Along. And I'll put up a picture here so you can see where I was. I had a very, very small start the last time I showed this to you. Since then, parts 2 through 8. Yes, because when I showed it to you, I had made the start on time with part 1. 2 through 8 were released. And I am all caught up. So here is where it is. And I'm going to have to do this very differently than I normally would because it's so big. Oh my goodness. So the parts go, well, whatever. I'll just show you. So I don't know how well you can see that. It's easier to see once I get down to the cliff and then the water, I think. So that's where I am. I've completed the moon and all of the gold here on the side, this gold petite treasure braid, which I actually really, really like. I don't normally like the gold metallics, like they're a little bit, they fray a lot more than other colors do, but I like this one. Here, maybe if I fold it in half. Yeah, this piece is so unwieldy. So down here, tons of metallics. And blue, it's meant to look like water that's kind of splashing up. And then we have the cliff here, which I actually really enjoyed stitching. I really liked that. I really, really like this piece. It's a lot of fun to work on. And I'm finally, for the first time in my life, keeping up to date on a stitch along, which is kind of surprising. That will probably go out the window here soon, but more on that later. Really, really liking it. Just to recap, this is stitched on, I want to say 28 count Belfast or Cashel linen, 28 or 32 count, I can't remember. Oh gosh, terrible. And this is also hand-dyed fabrics from Stephanie, and the color is Lady of the Lake, which I just love. And which I found that there is a myth to Lady of the Lake with regards to a Native American mermaid. Oh, so that's kind of cool. I always like to know where fabric dyers get their colors, or they get their names for the colors of their fabrics. And I think that that's probably where Stephanie got hers. So that's my Under the Moonlight. And then, most recently, I went kind of bonkers. And I decided to work on my Chatelaine Frosty Knot Garden. And my goal for this month was to finish part 2. And I'm going to put up a picture here so you can see where I was. The progress as far as what I've done looks very minimal. Because the last time that you saw this, I was working through the white metallic on the white background, what Martina calls ornaments. So to be able to see necessarily that I've done a bunch of white metallic stitching, it's kind of impossible. I know that there's progress there. And then after I finished that, there was extensive back stitching, and then there was specialty stitches to finish up part 2. And then, because that wasn't enough, I decided to move on to part 3 as well, because I was just so obsessed with this piece. I put it away for a while because it's mind-intensive stitching. You know, it requires a lot of counting, and it requires some knowledge of some specialty stitches, and you have to go in a certain order that Martina wants you to go in, but she doesn't tell you which way she wants you to go necessarily. Sometimes her patterns can be a little misleading. For instance, this part 2 had called for a color that it really wasn't calling for. It was a silken colors that I did not have. But I figured it out, you know, I worked out the color that she actually wanted me to use here. But you know, it's just kind of, it's an intensive project. And so anyway, before I ramble on anymore, I'll just go ahead and show you. So here is part 2. And then my start on part 3. And that corner there is repeated around all four corners. So, I mean, I'm barely into part 3. Part 3 does not include the space in the triangle. It just includes this border here, and then this border here, obviously. And it's mostly beads, and then the big spaces between these pale blue ornaments here, those are large rice stitches and roads, dense roads. So it's mostly to get the framework of this outer edge part, and then part 4 will be inside those triangles. So let's go back down to part 2. I'm going to fold it up so that you can only see one corner and so that I can better wield it. So part 2 included finishing up the white metallic stitching in those white ornaments with the trees, and you can maybe barely see the sparkle in there. It's a ton of sparkle if you're looking at it up close, but it's a very subtle sparkle on camera. And then there was the back stitching nightmare. These little flowers here, these here, no, not there. Where am I? There. Those flowers there are back stitched in metallic. So they shimmer and they're gorgeous, and the back stitching took forever. It was very fiddly to backstitch those, but you know, got it done. And then my favorite, oh my favorite, these ornaments here. So I'm probably going to snap a picture and show you up close what it looks like in there. But there are Jessica stitches, which were my first ever Jessica stitches. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Amanda, Mrs. Milky Bar Kid, for your video tutorial on the Jessica stitch. You saved me. And then the Jessica stitch is very simple. It's just what to do with the last leg of the Jessica stitch that can change everything about the stitch. It looks very different if you lay it over top or if you tuck it under. And so I chose to tuck it under to hold on to the round shape of the Jessicas. And you can see them. They are the purpley silver color in there with the pink cross in the middle. And then this one had some of the rhodes in Spanish moss, and then, which is that pea green color, and then some Algerian islets using 2 strands. So anyway, love this piece. Love it, love it, love it. Oh my goodness, do I love this piece. It made me come this close to ordering my second kit from European Cross Stitch for another chatelaine, because I'm just perpetually blown away by Martina's color sense. You know, looking at the threads together, I was a little hesitant about how she was going to organize these colors. I mean, there's purples and there's greens and there's reds and pinks among the blues, but very few blues. And this is frosty, not garden, so my assumption would be some green for the garden, and then an extensive amount of blues to emphasize the frost aspect. And that does not appear to be the case, at least in this center part. From looking at the pattern and at what others have done already, it does get more blue, but for the most part what I've done so far is mostly greens. And I just love it. I love the colors, and I love the way that Martina plays with color. And I love the way that she plays with metallics and beads, and I can't say enough. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. I'm going to try very hard not to just stitch this until it's done this month. I am going to work on it at some point, but yeah, I want to work on some other projects. I want to make something else my focus piece. You know, I want to do other things. So that's that. So then on January the 30th was the officially called Maliciously Hopeless Stitch Along. And this is the brainchild of Miss Mel and Hopeless, Wonderfully Hopeless Charity. Basically, we were in a hangout, and I said they were talking about adding more stitch-alongs. This was back when it was 18, and it was being expanded to 24. And I said, you know, these are no longer the hopeless Sals. These are the maliciously hopeless Sals, like maliciously hopeless. And they busted out laughing, and it was, you know, we all had a good time about it. So this maliciously hopeless Sal, the goal was to stitch something that makes you happy, or that makes you smile. And I had originally planned to do Stretch by Teresa Wentzler. It is a free pattern on her website. However, the fabric that I had ordered to complete it, it's a long story short, but I didn't think it had arrived. It was in my mailbox, but I hadn't been to, whatever. I didn't have it, and so I couldn't start Stretch on Friday. And so instead, I was asking Danny one night, I said, you know, what do I stitch next? What do I work on now? And he said, you should work on Pearl. And I said, why Pearl? Why do you say Pearl? And he said, well, that's your oldest work in progress, isn't it? And I said, yeah. And he said, and it's one of my favorites. And like my heart melted because Danny doesn't get sentimental about my stitching stuff. You know, I do. I get sentimental about it, but he doesn't. And so to hear that he wants to see Pearl, and he wants to see Pearl in progress, and He has a favorite. It just, love that. So I chose to work on Pearl. And so I worked on Pearl on Friday and Saturday, yesterday. So I'll put up a picture here of what it looked like before, and then here a picture of what it looked like after. Because today the stitch along is for Valentine's Day, and so Pearl has come off my frame momentarily so that I can work on my Valentine's Sal, which I will talk about in my new Hopeless Sal's video. So that's all that I've worked on. But it's a lot, you know. I've accomplished a lot. Now, a lot of what I've done, according to my calendar, I had given myself a 7-day period to work on the Passion Ricameau piece. I didn't need 7 days because the parts were so small. They were so not very intensive at all that I was able to get the part done in a day or two, tops. And so I would go back to work on another project. So I didn't complete all of Persephone in a week. I worked on it in parts over the course of the month. And the same is true for my Chatelaine, and the same is true for my Heaven and Earth design that I worked on, my bulletin board stitch along. So I owe part of my progress to the fact that my Passion Ricameau piece was much faster than I had intended. So that's okay by me. So then going forward, I was trying to decide what to do for my February monthly plan. The lovely, lovely Laura from the mastermind behind Passion Ricameau has thrown a wrench in my plans because I had made sort of the statement that I was going to stitch each part when it was released. People have been posting on the Facebook page for this particular mystery their progress, and everybody's staying very well up to date. So 2 days ago, Laura sent out an email and she said, "Hey, I noticed that you guys are loving this piece, so here's parts 9 and 10 right now." And I was like, "Laura, why'd you have to do that?" You know, I was doing good, staying on time, because now I'm afraid part 9 wasn't supposed to come out until February the 9th. Part 10 wasn't supposed to come out until the end of February. I was afraid that I'm going to fall behind because I want to stay with the release dates. And now that's kind of... But I'm comforted with the fact that I have parts 9 and 10 now, and if I get part 9 done quickly, then I can move on to part 10. You know, like I can still stay up to date. It's alright. So I'm going to put up my February plan now, and you will notice that I have again given myself a 7-day period for part 9 and a 7-day period for part 10. And I'm just going to hold to that for now. You know, I'm going to do the same thing that I have been doing. If I finish the part early, then I'll work on something else for the rest of the week. What else was I going to say? Oh, having a look at parts 9 and 10, they're a little bit more stitch intensive. They're a little bit more full parts than the recent parts have been. So they will take me considerably more time than recent parts, which is great. Spending more time with that piece, you will not find me complaining. So I'm looking forward to seeing that grow. And then you will notice that tomorrow, on February the 2nd, I'm pulling out Mini Pearl to work on for a week. My goal is in February to finish page 6. Page 6 is kind of a partial, but only by like maybe 500 stitches. It's really, really not very much of a partial. It's mostly full. But anyway, not a big deal. So anyway, Mini Pearl is going to be my focus piece in February. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why I'm losing my train of thought here. Maybe because I've been going for 30 minutes. Anyway, Mini Pearl is my focus piece this month. I have newfound love for it. in accomplishing what I did for the Maliciously Hopeless Sal, I have reached the 50% mark. Pearl will be 2, as in I've been working on it for 2 years, on April the 1st. I have a 2-year-old mini. You know, taken out of context, that's just kind of weird. Anyway, so that's kind of crazy. And so I want to make Mini Pearl a focus piece so that I can get her done this year. And so February, that's what I'm going to do. We also have the St. Patrick's Sal coming up in, I believe, closer to the end of March. I think that what I've decided to do is that on stitch-along weeks, I'm going to... The stitch-alongs are usually on Fridays, so I'm going to spend the weekend working on my stitch-along. And you will see there Lucky Me, Gloria, and Pat. And that is, again, part of my new plans for Maliciously Hopeless, the stitch-alongs, so more on that later. So those are my plans, y'all. I have a haul video where I can show you what I've got for Christmas as well as afterward. I have there are a bunch of tags that have come out in January that I'm going to do, and then I also have my new plans, which I've been alluding to this entire video. So I've got a lot coming in the very near future. I haven't disappeared from YouTube. I'm still recording. I just took some time for stitching, basically. That's what it boils down to. You know, I've been sitting here talking to you guys for 32 minutes, plus it took me 20 minutes to get ready, so that's 50 minutes of stitching time. You're welcome. I'm sacrificing my stitching time for you. Okay, so I'm going to cut it off here, and I will see you guys later. Thanks so much, and happy stitching week.